Welcome to the Casey Ingram Show, where we break down the headlines, ask the tough questions, and bring you real conversations that matter right here on the Treasure Coast and beyond. If you like the show, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm Casey Ingram. Let's get into it. My guests today are Vicki Davis, Martin County's Supervisor of Elections, and Kherri Anderson, the Chief Deputy Supervisor of Elections. Vicki was first elected in 2004 and has served Martin County since 2005. A sixth-generation Floridian and now serving her sixth term, she spent more than 2 decades helping ensure elections are conducted accurately, securely, and transparently. And Kherri, you actually oversee many of the day-to-day election operations that helps make sure everyday elections run smoothly. And I really want to thank you both for being here ahead of our big elections here in Martin County, the primary coming up on August 18th. So
Mhm.
wanted to do this show to kind of give people an overview of hopefully any questions they might have about the election process. Vicki, I'll start with you. For those who may not know, what are the responsibilities of the supervisor of elections?
Well, basically, my job is twofold under state law, state constitution, and of course, that umbrella. There's many duties and competencies that fall underneath that umbrella. But first of all, it's to register voters and maintain our voter registration database. And secondly, to conduct elections. So I know people have asked over the years, well, you only have so many elections, every other year. What do you do outside of elections? And anymore, Casey, we are busy every day, year round. We are nonstop. And as Kiri's shaking her head, yes, she knows because she's always out in the community. She has a team going out in the community, just educating voters, being in the nursing homes. And I'll let her share about that a little bit later with your questions. But it is a full-time job.
And hopefully you have a constant stream of people registering to vote all year round.
Yes, and we're getting our annual report ready for publication, and we cover a lot of very interesting demographics. We'll make sure that you have a copy of that so you can see how many people have registered throughout the year, how many removals we've had throughout the year, and for all of the different reasons, which include the deceased, of course, those who are ineligible because they've committed a felony. We have a caseload of files that we're working on all of the time, removing those individuals, those that have been adjudicated mentally incompetent, those that have moved out of state, those that request removal. So there are a lot of different reasons that we're removing voters from the database.
Now, Kherri, as chief deputy, what role do you play in making election day run smoothly?
Well, it's a great question, Casey. So, my role here at the Supervisor of Elections office, a big portion are our election workers. People don't realize that the election workers are the front line of the process. Our Supervisor of Elections staff with our supervisor is made up of 12 day to day employees. We have 29 polling precincts for primary 3 early voting sites, for general 6 early voting sites. So, for this upcoming primary, we're going to have a little over 160 individuals working the polls. All of them must be trained on our equipment, and we've upgraded. So that's something very exciting. We've gone from our DS200, same vendor, same trusted equipment, election systems and software, to now a DS300. So it's a faster tabulator. So we're training those election workers to make sure they understand the process and procedures to ensure that you have a great voting experience, whether you're voting early or voting by mail or on election day, that they're following those procedures and processes. So your experience is great. So that's one of the big things that we're working on and that I'm doing right now, Casey.
Well, I have to say, Kherri and Vicki, you guys have always been, it seems like, the fastest. I've covered different elections on the Treasure Coast here, the fastest returns on votes. So you said a faster system. Does that mean instead of 7:05, it's going to be 7:01 when you turn in the election votes?
It's it does tabulate very quickly, and then it gets those results into us very quickly
We're
as
all
well.
waiting. We all watch. So, we're just really tuned into our screen. So we appreciate that. You
Well,
guys do such an
pri-
amazing job.
primaries are very important elections, and that's one thing that Kiri and I really try to educate our voters. Because looking back at the 2022 primary election, when it was an open governor's seat, we only had a 33% overall turnout. So we work almost as hard for a primary with a much lower turnout to double it then going into a general election in a mid-year term. But our voters really need to be aware of the fact that Florida has closed primaries. This election cycle, it's really different for this primary because we have the 2 county commission races on the ballot, districts 2 and districts 4, and they have no opposition. So Florida law says that if there is a race and there's no opposition from another candidate of a different party or a write-in candidate, then those races appear on every ballot style. So all voters within the county can vote in and for county commission districts 2 and 4. And then, of course, all of our school board races are nonpartisan, so they're open to every registered voter in the county as well. So we encourage voters, get your neighbors, get your families out to vote. This is when decisions are made. And with our county commission races, they're decided in this primary election in August. School board races being nonpartisan, and there are 2 school board races that have 3 candidates. So if the top candidate doesn't take 50% plus 1 of the votes, then they go on to the top 2 go on to the general ballot and will be decided in the general in November. But really important races, most of the time they're decided in the primary.
I'm glad you cleared that up. There was a lot of discussion on social media about if you need to change your party affiliation, because in the past there's been a write-in candidate.
Yes.
So in the past, you did need to on certain races, the county commission. So thank you for clarifying that. And it's important with the school board as well. You just clarified that they need to get 50% plus 1, or it's going to go to a runoff in November. So keep an eye on those races as well. Now, what are the biggest dates voters need to remember before the primary?
Kherri, you want to cover those dates?
Love to. Casey, we have one that's actually fastly approaching, and that's July 20th. That is the last day an individual can register to vote as a first-time registered voter or change their political party affiliation. As we know, you must have that in place 29 days before an election. So we're reminding voters July 20th. We will have a voter registration drive, and visit our website, martinvotes.gov. There is a wealth of information as well as our community calendar. So for that book closing date, if you're thinking, you know what, I just moved to Florida, I need to register to vote, I do want to participate, I want to be a part of this primary election, July 20th is your deadline. Now, we like to clarify for some individuals, if you move from Miami-Dade or Palm Beach or somewhere within the 67 counties, that's just an address change. So you don't have to meet that deadline. It's only for those who are newly registering to vote in Florida, or for those who would like to change their political party. After that, your next big dates that you really want to focus on are for those of you who vote by mail. If you have already renewed your request, and that's important as well, we don't blanket mail ballots. You must request a ballot to be mailed. We've already mailed our military and overseas ballots because those go out 45 days before an election. But those who've already requested, a little over 11,000 now, will go out on July 9th. So those who've already requested their mail ballot, and if you're thinking, oh no, I did not do that, do I still have time? You do still have time to request a mail ballot if you wish to vote by mail. And then your next big date after that are those who like to vote early. You want to see our election workers. We have 3 early voting sites, and that'll be August the 8th through August 15th. Starts on a Saturday, ends on a Saturday. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and even Sunday. People don't think we're open on Sunday.
No.
That August 9th, it's usually the quietest day. So if you want a little more of a quieter opportunity to come in on Sunday and vote early. And we're encouraging you, bring your kids, bring your family, even if they're not old enough, let them see the process that you're participating. So once they're 18, they're more inclined to participate. And then the big day, and that's August 18th. That's your final chance to have your voice heard. And so I like to tell people, be a part of history. We're celebrating 250 years. What other way to be a part of history than having your voice heard? So get out and vote. So those are just some of the dates that are really important. We want voters to really think about.
So, Kherri, on the mail-in ballots, Just to be clear, do they have to ask for that ballot before July 9th?
No. So those who've already requested before the July 9th date, those are the ones that will be going out on July 9th. But if you're an individual, the next couple of days you're at the pool and your neighbors are like, hey, I got my ballot, and you're thinking, I didn't get my ballot. You can still call our office. You have time to call and request a ballot to be mailed to you. So if you are saying, oh no, July 9th, I don't think I've done it, not to worry. That's for those who've already requested. You can still call in or visit us online to request a ballot.
And for those registering, it might seem obvious, but how do they register? What's the
That's a
options?
Well, there are quite a few ways. A lot of individuals like to register a DMV while they're already there updating their vehicle registration. They can register to vote at DMV. You can also visit our website. There is a link, registertovoteflorida.gov. You can register to vote online. Or if you're a person who loves to see a friendly face here in Martin County, our office hours are open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Come into our office and a staff member will probably register you to vote in person or visit one of our voter drives. We have all of that information on our website so that you have multiple opportunities to go ahead and get registered to vote. There are also applications in all of our public libraries and post offices too, if you want to pick up a paper application, if that's most convenient for you.
Multiple ways. Now, how can voters view a sample ballot before Election Day, and why do you recommend they do so?
Yeah, we have our sample ballot out on the website already. Just go to the homepage, martinvotes.gov, and there is a header with some round icons. The last icon is sample ballots. Click on that. There's also one for those who may be sight impaired or those that are military and overseas. They can see their ballot through that side as well. But you can also access your specific ballot style by going through check my voter status and going through some prompts, and it will pull up your ballot style. Because we do have 108 different ballot styles because we have to report by precinct. And then we have 2 municipal elections that are also on ballots for this upcoming primary. We have for the city of Stuart, 3 seats that are up for re-election. And then we also have the village of Indiantown, 3 seats. So those that reside within the village of Indiantown, they will have a different ballot style than what Kherri and I will have because we're county. Those that reside within the city of Stuart will have those races on their ballots as well. I do like to clarify, though, Casey, because the 2 municipalities have different language in their charters regarding when those races are finalized. So with the city of Stuart, their language in their charter, they do have to have the candidates have to have 50% plus 1 or the 2 top vote getters if there are 3 in the race, and we have races with 3 in those running for those seats, they would have to go on to the general ballot. The village of Indiantown, however, their language is winner takes all. So they will be decided in the primary, whereas it's possible for the city of Stuart that 1 or 2 may go on to the general ballot. So I like to make that distinction for voters.
I'm glad you did because it is interesting. I live in the county as well, so I kind of assume everybody is winner takes all on August 18th. But as you just said, that's not the case with the school board nor with the city of Stuart. So I
Correct.
appreciate that clarification.
Sure.
If someone requests a vote by mail ballot, but then decides to vote in person instead, what happens?
They're allowed to still show up at the polls. Kherri's poll workers will ask if they brought that vote by mail ballot with them. If they did, what Florida law now requires is for the voter themselves to tear that ballot in half, hand it to the poll worker that's there, and it comes back to the office. It will flag the poll worker when they check in if they have requested a vote by mail ballot on the system. If they have voted a ballot and returned it to us, it states that on the system as well as they're checking in. So poll workers have access to that information. If they have not voted their ballot and they're issued a ballot at a precinct, it's going to check off in the system that that voter has cast a vote. So if they did not bring the ballot with them that they received in the mail, If it should come back into us, it's not accepted. It goes to the canvassing board. It's not accepted because they've already voted at the polls, and it indicates that.
Okay.
So there are so many safeguards built into the system to make sure that everyone only has that opportunity to vote.
And for that person that loses their mail-in ballot, they could just request a new one. If they lost it, you would know if they turned in more than one.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Florida law allows us to provide a voter 3 ballots. So, yeah, they
Okay. Perfect. What are the most common mistakes that cause delays or issues with the vote by mail ballots?
delays or issues. Really, I recommend to voters that when they receive that vote by mail ballot to vote it and drop it off. Drop it off here to the office or to one of the 2 early voting sites for the primary election, because we'll have secure ballot intake stations at those locations as well. They could drop it off from 8 to 5 during early voting at either the Hope Sound Library or the Indiantown Elizabeth Latte Library during those voting hours. They come back to us nightly so that they're here in the office. But we do receive, because Florida law says we have to have that voted ballot by election day, 7 p.m., when the polls close. The next day, it's very sad to go to the post office and you have trays full of voted ballots. But, you know, we intake those, we indicate in the system that it was received late. And, it's, like I said, hard to see all of those voted ballots that were delayed in return.
So the moral of the story is get it in early if you're doing
Get
mail-in
it in
ballot.
early, absolutely. And we can take those requests up to the 12th day before Election Day, and we get
Okay.
them right out. So it would be, the 4th of August would be the last day we can take a request because of the turnaround time with the Postal Service. It used to be 5 days before Election Day, and it seems like every legislative session, our association has said, let's move it back further because of the turnaround time with the Postal Service.
Right. And it varies drastically.
Mhm.
Now, what identification is required when voting in person?
Kherri?
Well, Casey, there are 12 forms of approved ID that a voter can bring to the polls in order to cast a vote. The one thing, though, that a lot of voters think we want that we definitely do not need is their voter information card. They come to the polls and they proudly want to hand you that voter information card. And it's just that. It's not a voter registration card. It says voter information because it lets you as a voter know how you're registered and where you should go if you choose to vote on election day. The most common forms of approved ID, and again, it must be valid, are a driver's license or a state-issued ID. And there are those who bring passports, but there are 12 forms of approved ID. Our election workers have those right there at the polling precinct. So if a voter comes and says, well, I don't have a driver's license, then they can review the list with them of the 12 forms of approved ID that we can accept at a polling precinct so that they will be able to be checked in and issued their ballot.
Do all those 12 IDs, they all have to have a photo with them?
Great question. So you can combine that's why most people like a driver's license because it has a photo and signature. So we need photo and signature identification. So a driver's license or state issued ID and passport have those, but one of them is your government ID. But my government ID has my photo, but there is no signature. So I would need to produce something else with a signature. So I could bring my credit card if it has a signature. If it says CID, that's not a signature. If it has my signature, I can combine these two from the list and present that to an election worker that they could use to check me in.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
Now, many people have questions about election security. What safeguards are in place to ensure every legal vote is counted?
Well, I really like discussing and sharing with our voters the role of the canvassing board. According to Florida law, there are 3 individuals that make up a canvassing board that oversee the election process and certify the election at the end of the process itself. So canvassing board is made up of the county judge. My judge is Judge Kathleen Roberts, who has been with me since I came into office. So she knows the election process inside and out. And then Florida law specifies a county commissioner. Our county commissioner for this election cycle is Ed Campy, and his alternate is Commissioner Vargas. The alternate judge is Judge Steele. Darren Steele. So we start out as a canvassing board. We always have an orientation. It's open to the public. We go over all of those important dates, the different steps that we're going to take. If anything has changed in the law, we cover that. But then the real first activity that takes place that's open to the public is the logic and accuracy testing of the voting equipment. And what we're required to do and what we do is pre-test every piece of equipment that we have in-house, whether it's being deployed into the field or not for election day and early voting. And then there are 10 pieces of equipment that are tested publicly just to make sure that and to show the public so that they feel confident and trust in the process that the machine is properly tabulating the votes, the ballots that are being inserted into the equipment. And as Kherri said earlier, and we discussed, we do have new voting equipment. We're excited about it. It's all paid for. When I came into office, I asked our county administrator and commissioners if it would be possible for the monies that was left over in my election account at the end of the fiscal year to go into an equipment replacement account. They agreed to do that. So throughout the years, we've been able to add equipment such as our check-in system that we have, the EVIDS, electronic identification system. And we've purchased ballot on demand printers. We're going to have those for primary early voting, for early voting sites. An individual voter's ballot is going to be printed on site so it matches their ballot style, and it actually is a cost savings to our budget. But all of the equipment is paid for. The Board of County Commissioners we did not have to go back before them for additional monies, because when I came into office, Casey, in 2004, after the election of 2000, the voting equipment that we used to have for many, many years in Martin County were the old lever machines, and they were decertified at the federal level. Congress passed an act, the Help America Vote Act, and in that act, it decertified, of course, the punch card ballots because of what happened in Florida. They were decertified, plus the lever machines were decertified. So my predecessor, she purchased electronic touchscreen equipment, so it was available in 2002. Our Board of County Commissioners bonded over $500,000 for the purchase of that equipment. And then, so from 2002 we had the electronic touchscreen, which it's not a very long time, and that money was bonded. Then we had to make a change because Governor Chris mandated that every county in the state of Florida have a paper ballot. So we had the DS200s from 2008 until this year. So almost 20 years, it was time to replace the equipment, and it's all paid for.
Dare I say, Vicki, hats off to you. You created essentially a sinking fund, knowing at some point you'd have to replace your machines, and just hats off to you. Not all government thinks that way, and they wait until they have to, go out and purchase it, and then they do have to bond or find a way for taxpayers to pay for it that day. So just a shout out to you. That was very, very smart. What happens if a machine malfunctions on election day?
If it malfunctions, there's still a process. There's an emergency ballot bin. Voters can still continue to vote. They would put their ballot in the bin itself. Then if and when power came back up, they would be placed through the equipment by two poll workers of differing parties, just to oversee the process, making it transparent, fair. And if the equipment was not able to come back up, we would bring a new piece of equipment in, because they've all been tested, pre-tested. It would just be a matter of getting it to the precinct. Fortunately, we don't really have to deal with those issues, and shouldn't with this new equipment.
So how are ballots secured from the time they're cast until they are counted?
That's a really good question, too, because we have ballots coming in from all directions. We have our vote-by-mail ballots that are going out. They'll start coming in right away. Voters start voting them. We have a vault here in the office, and ballots go into the vault. We have to, the vote by mail ballots go into the vault, we have to verify the signature on every one of those ballot certificates that's printed on that ballot envelope. So once those are verified, they go back into the vault, or we have these red cages that are sealed, and there's a log that shows if it's opened and the seal is changed, the number. So we have that under tight control. When we go into early voting, those early voting ballots come back in every day, and they're audited to make sure they go through an independent audit system to make sure that our numbers are matching up. And then they go into the vault. For election day, of course, those ballots come back in that evening, and they're secured here in the office. When we start the the vote by mail process, we go into what is our training room, but it's also our canvassing room. There are cameras in that room. The doors go on lockdown, and only Kherri, myself, and our warehouse deputy has access to that room. The rest of my staff doesn't even have access, but our vote by mail ballots are in there, and they stay in there until the election is certified, because it's on lockdown and it is viewed by cameras. We have the other thing that I really like to share as far as securing the election during early voting. We have our own lock sets for those library rooms. So I have a locksmith that comes in, gets our lock set, goes to the libraries when they're delivering the equipment, and takes out the library's lock set, inserts ours, and only the clerk and myself here at the office, only those two individuals have keys to that early voting room. And then the library's lock sets come here until after early voting ends, and then they're replaced and our lock sets go back in our vault. So we've really tried to think through the process in order to continue to secure the
Right.
facility, and then the machines are sealed every night as well, and they have
That
to verify those seal numbers the next morning.
I was gonna say, that's a step I haven't heard that you've done before. You may have been doing it all along, but that
We
really
have.
is a very important
Yep.
precautionary step, and one I hadn't even thought of when your machines
Yep.
are out at the libraries.
Yep.
Can you just walk us through the signature verification process? Because a lot of folks are concerned about, people going out to nursing homes and collecting all these ballots from people, and are they really voting? So, can you walk us through how you verify who really is turning in those mail-in
Sure.
ballots?
Kherri, I'm going to let you talk about the going into the nursing homes, what we do, and then I'll talk about how we verify those signatures.
Sure. So, Casey, that's very important. And it's a good question that people want to know. As you know, those who are in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, they are still active registered voters. They just can't physically leave the facility. So, we are required by law to reach out to all of the facilities to provide the opportunity for those individuals to register to vote, update their information, even their signature, because signatures are very, very important, and provide supervised voting. So we make appointments, and we're going to one this week as well, where we'll come in, register those to vote, update their information. If they say all my information, it's current. When I moved here, I changed my address. We get that signature updated, because their signature when they first registered might have been a nice crisp signature with a name. Now it might be a squiggly line or just a few initials. So by updating that signature, when ballots come back here and they are verified, you can match and say, well, that's Kherri Anderson, because now she signs her signature like this, and we can verify. For supervised voting, when we come in to get them registered to vote, we give them the option to have supervised voting, meaning that a member from our team, who is a supervisor of election staff member, not a volunteer, comes back with the ballots. We bring them in a secure bag with a chain of custody log of how many ballots we're taking out and how many are coming back in. And those residents who have requested supervised voting, which is anything from actually reading the ballot question to the voter to filling in the oval of their choice. That voter then reviews his or her ballot themselves. They place it in the envelope and they seal it and they sign it. and place it in our secure bag that comes back to the office. In addition to that, they love the fact that we provide them with I voted stickers that you get, but they get a little extra. They get a lollipop that says vote. So they get a little bit more than the regular voter, and they love that. But it provides them that opportunity to still have their voice heard because they still want to actively engage and participate in the process. So, yes, we're doing that. Miss Davis, you want to finish?
Yeah. And those signatures that don't match, Casey, because we are required to physically look at every signature and compare it with the signature in our database. If it doesn't match, we're reaching out to that voter for them to sign off on an affidavit that they signed that ballot envelope, that certificate, and they also have to provide identification. So they have to provide us with a copy of their driver's license. And all of that information then goes to the canvassing board. That's another function of the canvassing board. They either accept those or reject them based on the evidence that we present to them. So we're reaching out to voters by any means that we have available to us. If we have their phone number, we're texting them, we're calling them. We're required by law to get a letter out to them immediately. And we're emailing them if we have their email address. All of the above measures to reach out to them.
Very secure process. And I just want to be clear. So it's somebody from your staff, your office, that's going out to all the different assisted living facilities. I mean, there's got to be quite a few here in Martin County. That's got to be quite
Yes.
it's got to be quite an undertaking.
It is.
It is. We started in November of last year because there are so many facilities where we've already made those appointments and we're coming in to do voter registration, update their information. And for those who request supervised voting, we'll be coming out later this month with those ballots, and it's a member of our staff.
Yeah, and
Very
I think
important.
you've already been to 15, correct, Kherri?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
We've been to 15 facilities.
Yeah.
So how many are there?
I've got to
In
look at
total?
my list.
There's got to be a lot.
But there's a lot. It's amazing being here 20 years from what we had to what we have now,
Right.
and how they've popped up and grown, and the names are constantly changing. But yes, there are quite a few out there for us. So I think we have 4 more to visit this month to make sure we get their information.
It's incredible. And I hope this gives people a little peace of mind of how much security goes into our ballots, because it's so important in our voting system here in the United States, but right here in Martin County. You guys have always done such a fabulous job. You have. It's impressive.
Thank you.
So even as many times as I've had you on the show, I'm learning more stuff even today. So
Yeah.
I appreciate it to both of you. And I have just a few more questions. They're more of a quick answer. Can I take a picture of my ballot?
Yes, according to Florida law, you can take a picture of your own ballot. You can't take selfies in the voting booth, but you can take a physical picture of your ballot.
Can I wear campaign clothing to vote?
Yes. You can go in with campaign paraphernalia, but then you vote and you're right out the door and beyond our 150-foot no solicitation zone.
Can I bring notes or a sample ballot into the voting booth?
You can. The only prohibition that we have is if you have received an official vote by mail ballot in the mail. A lot of times voters like to fill that out and then bring it with them as a sample ballot. It's not going to go in the voting booth with them. They're going to have to transfer those votes over to a sample ballot, which we have available at each early voting site and precinct. And that official ballot, they're going to have to tear in half and hand off to the poll worker.
What if I make a mistake on my ballot?
If you make a mistake on your ballot, you're allowed up to 3 ballots. So you would take it back to the assistant clerk, and the assistant clerk or clerk would issue a replacement ballot. They have a log. They have to keep track of how many ballots have been issued, and they have to sign off on that log.
And what happens if I'm still in line when the polls close?
When the polls close at 7 p.m., the poll deputy goes behind the last voter that may be in line, and those ahead are eligible to cast a vote.
And what's the one thing every Martin County voter should do before the primary?
The one thing is to become educated on what's on the ballot. Don't wait until the last minute. And I would say especially for the general election, because we're going to have important referendums that will be on the ballot. One so far that the legislature is putting on the ballot for the general in November. This primary ballot is all candidate related. There is no language, but come November with the general, voters need to really read that language, understand it, and know how they're going to cast their vote.
That is a big one, folks. It's about our property taxes.
Correct.
Is there anything voters often overlook that you'd like everyone to know before Election Day?
Where the precinct is located,
What?
because it becomes confusing for voters, and we understand that. When you have early voting, we have voters that show up here at the office on Election Day, and we have to kindly tell them, I'm sorry, but you can't vote here unless it's an emergency. And we have an affidavit you would have to fill out because Florida law requires you to vote at your precinct on Election Day. But they become confused because we're an early voting site. And the same thing with the libraries. So they'll show up at the Hope Sound Library and they have to be, shuffled over across the street to the Methodist Church or wherever their assigned precinct is located. But that's common. So voters really need to know where their precinct is located.
That's a good point because for years I voted at the library in Palm City, then I was changed over to the church. So and it
Yes,
depends on if it's early voting or the actual election day. So
absolutely.
good advice.
hmm
After running so many elections, what is something about the election process that most people don't realize but would probably make them more confident in the system?
And Kherri, you can jump in here too, but I think that knowing about the canvassing board, knowing the canvassing board oversees the process, certifies the process, it's not just me and my staff. And also that we're required by law to keep all of those ballots for 22 months. And not just the ballots, but anything that pertains to the election. All of the broken seals, all of the custody logs, all of the reconciliation logs, all of that is kept for 22 months. And the other really important point too is that independent audit that we're conducting as we go along in the election process, making sure that those numbers are adding up equally from the tabulator to the independent audit scanner, just because of the way they're reading the ovals. One may be more sensitive than the other. So it may vary a little bit, but there's a range within which we have to be in order to know that those numbers are matching up adequately.
Well, Vicki Davis, Kherri Anderson, I appreciate you taking time here this morning. Hats off to you guys. I know it's going to be a busy few months for you, but you always do such a tremendous job here for Martin County.
One last thing, when you come to the polls, this is what your new I voted sticker will look like. It was
Nice.
designed by a ninth grader at Jensen Beach High School. So everyone who votes earlier on election day, you can proudly wear with our county seal a patriotic sticker designed by a ninth grader here in Martin County. And for our future voters, I don't have that one with me. It's a nice eagle that says proud future voter. So everyone who brings their kids, grandkids, nieces, or nephews, they're going to leave with a sticker that they will one day be a proud future Martin County voter. So we want you to get out and vote. However you do it, just get out and participate.
I
Yeah.
love it. I'm so glad you shared that with us. And this is our 250th anniversary. So this is really a special year. So it's commemorative
It
as
is.
well.
And
So
Casey, I just want to thank our poll workers too, because we refer to them and my staff, election workers, as the gatekeepers of democracy. And they take that to heart. They are there to perform a service. They're there, as Kherri always says, with a servant's heart. They're there to help assist that voter when they come in. We all have our own preferences, how we're going to cast our votes. That's set aside during the election process. We all have our time that we go in and cast our own ballots the way that we choose. But beyond that, we're there to assist our voters and to make sure that every single voter has the opportunity to cast their vote in the manner that they want that vote to be counted.
thank you again. And folks, don't forget, August 18th is our primary this year. And as they covered, this is our Martin County races. There may be some that go on to November, but maybe not. You need to be out on our primary to have a voice in our Martin County races. So I hope to see you all at the polls, mail in ballots, whatever it takes. And Kherri Anderson, Miss Vicki Davis, it is always a pleasure. And I appreciate the wealth of information. And also, I have a sense of security that the process is done right here. So
Good.
I appreciate that as well. And I can say that on behalf of viewers for sure.
Well, we appreciate you, Casey, and allowing us to provide the information to voters throughout the community.
Always my pleasure. And folks, don't forget, follow the Casey Ingram Show on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube for more real talk you won't hear anywhere else. I'm Casey Ingram. Stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you again.